Dggrs is the second in the Gnomes trilogy by Terry Pratchett, or the Bromeliad trilogy, which actually indeed that comes up very heartwarmingly at the very end of this book. So yes, in the first book, tiny gnome-like creatures living in kind of a modern day England in a department store, but the department store is getting torn down. They escape out into the outside world, and now they're in Dggrs. They are in the outside world. This second book kind of, I don't know if suffers. The first book is a little bit of its standalone adventure. There's very much outsiders come in, discover that the store is about to get demolished, and it's the adventure of like, are they going to escape? Do they escape? The second book sort of is a middle book. It is definitely a middle book. It's actually kind of a split off book. Main characters, Masculine, Gerland, a couple of others, they go off for their own adventure. Which is apparently going to happens concurrently in Wings, but in this book we stick around with the rest of the crew that are in a rock quarry, where unfortunately, yet again, it's not a completely abandoned rock quarry, and human beings are coming again, and it's another we have to escape. There is, as with all children's books, there is religious extremism. There is the fallacy of belief. There is kind of an utter kind of apocalyptic despair, as you get with most children's books, at least children's books that like to hit this stuff rather unaffraidly, and are, if you're like Terry Pratchett, secret with Terry Pratchett's children's books, they're basically the same as the adult books. I cannot tell the difference, except maybe there's chapter breaks in the midst of them. But yeah, so this one definitely follows more of Grimma, who is kind of one of the females, who is definitely advancing in the store structure was very much, females don't get to read, females aren't allowed to make decisions, even though they actually basically are standing behind men telling them what to do. In this one, it's like, no, she is the best reader there. She's probably the most sensible person there. There is a character called Nicodemus or something like that, who is very much kind of a religious extremist, and as you might expect in a book with atheists, that doesn't go so well for him. I think the main story here, that I feel like it's the main arc, is probably of Dorcas, the more engineering kind of gnome, and his kind of love for making things, and for how things work, and he gets kind of upset when things get busted. But also he's like an older generation, and all this being outside does freak a lot of the older gnomes out. It's like they burst out of the small shell that they were in and realize there's a much larger world, and that is like kind of terrifying, and which in some ways may be actually a good reason why this could be considered a children's book, because it is about that whole thing. I remember growing up in the Okanagan Valley, and that was sort of that was my world. I mean, just you have your little neighborhood, and that is your own world, and everything outside of that is like fantastic and either amazing or scary. Maybe if you're young, it's amazing, but as you get older, maybe that's scarier, and there's the wider world and stuff like that. So while I don't think this book stands on its own as well as the first book, it's still really enjoyable, still lots of Terry Pratchett's kind of good humor, a lot of his very kind of satirical things of just, how people deal with poor situations, and then when they get comfortable, they start complaining and arguing, but that when things get really terrible, well, either they panic and really do dumb things, or cling on to old beliefs that are, not without much reason, or there's a positive side that they actually do kind of band together. They drop their petty arguments and they focus on what needs to be focused on. So in that way, it is both a book about atheism and despair and ontological thinking and all that stuff, but it is also, a book of, human spirits, intelligence, the intelligence of these creatures, and sort of the way they look at human beings as from their perspective of human beings, is they're these mooing cows that maybe aren't very thoughtful, and that they from their imagination, this world must have been created for them, but like, well, why is everything human sized? And so it makes you wonder how we look at the world, and we assume that this world was made for us. It was like, no, it wasn't made for us. We just happen to be part of what's in it. So yeah, I'll be doing my review of Wings next after I've read it. All right, more videos later.